Hi guys, it's Debbie, and recently here in Italy, Stanley Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut, was brought back in theatres. And although there is absolutely nothing I could possibly add to the staggering amount of information, analysis, reviews out there about this film, I still wanted to humbly share my thoughts on this movie as somebody who had already seen the film multiple times and now got to see it on the big screen. Also after all the Epstein scandals and everything surrounding elite secret circles becoming more mainstream discussion. Every time I bring up this movie, I share this fun fact about the first time that I ever watched it. First of all, I was way too young to be watching it, but I remember being so shocked by the opening scene with Nicole Kidman peeing, which I thought was so intimate and scandalous, when little did I know what was in store for me for the following 2 hours. Don't worry, I won't be covering major spoilers in this video, but if you want to preserve the mystery of this film and go in without knowing anything about it, then this isn't really the right video for you. I'd recommend sticking to the trailers, which for once don't spoil too much about the story. We're actually very lucky here in Italy because even regular cinemas constantly bring back older movies in remastered versions, often in original language. Sometimes it's huge mainstream movies. Right now I think it's Top Gun, but I think that's a worldwide thing at the moment. But we also get way more niche directors and films. I've seen Sion Sono's movie screened, Hirokazu Koreda is coming up now, lots of anime, Wong Kar-wai films, even Bruce Lee movies, and this time it was Eyes Wide Shut. Now I'm pretty positive that some 15 years ago, while studying German literature in high school, we did actually cover the novella on which this film is based, Dream Story, but I'm going to be totally honest with you, I can't remember anything about it, so this video is based just on the film. Eyes Wide Shut was Kubrick's final film before dying, and of course there are endless conspiracy theories about him suddenly dying right after completing the movie, which also includes the elite secret parties, hidden societies, but that's not really my place to discuss that. What I want to discuss is just how beautiful this film is, especially when seen on the big screen. In the movie, Tom Cruise plays a wealthy, respected doctor whose world completely shatters after discussion with his wife, in which she admits she had fantasies and explains how attraction and desire are natural even for women, even if you don't act on them. And with that, the doctor's world completely collapses. He can't shake off this image of his wife with another man, and he sets off into this beautiful, wintry New York night and lets himself drift off into a world he probably would have never met otherwise. Prostitutes, temptation, fantasies, secret gatherings, and through a series of coincidences and his curiosity, he ends up at a mysterious masked ball, and that's where everything slips out of control. Now you could read this movie very literally. A couple sort of breaking apart who admit that they have desires of cheating, partly also just out of spite, or you could read it more metaphorically as reaching the point in life in which you feel trapped and stagnant and become obsessed with the fantasy of freedom, desire, temptation. And maybe it's not even about the sex itself, it's the thought of it, the pursuit of it, the fantasy. The film often refers to dreams and fantasies, saying a dream is never just a dream. And for such a narcissistic man as the protagonist, even just the idea of these fantasies existing is devastating, unless of course it's him having them. Disobeying the dictates of society and your own conscience can feel both liberating and terrifying at the same time. And honestly, this film feels timeless because man's obsession with sex and fantasies and temptations is timeless. This film could have been released 20 years earlier or 50 years later and it still would have worked. Because of all this discussion around sex, Eyes Wide Shut is often sold on its horniness, when in reality it's a really sad and lonely movie. There's far less sex than people expect, and although part of you is curious, wants to see the nudity, wants to see these characters, on the other hand, part of you is begging the characters to not do it because of the consequences and because you know that the outcome is not what they expect. Kubrick's wife Christiane actually said this film has nothing to do with sex and everything to do with fear. This film is scary, not only because of what happens within a relationship, but also because of this idea that somewhere out there is this elite society living by completely different rules. We all joke about Tom Cruise flashing his medical badge around the city as if it's some sort of sheriff badge that gives him access to everything. But if society is so quick to trust and respect somebody merely based on the fact that they're a doctor, think about how quickly we bend over when billionaires and elites tell us how to live, what to buy, what to admire. The movie also puts a big emphasis on the contrast between this polite, respectful society and the unpleasant side of society. Fancy apartments, doctors, glamorous Christmas party on one side, prostitutes and drunks and seedy streets on the other. But the movie constantly shows how these two worlds are not that far from one another. Wealthy, respected men are doing the exact same things, they just do it in more luxurious settings behind closed doors. Street prostitution is treated as disgusting and shameful, but then at upper class parties we see rich men having sex with very young women, there are drugs involved. If the exact same thing had happened on a street and not in some fancy mansion, would it have been morally worse? The problem, as the movie shows, is that it is a very slippery slope. And we're all very quick to judge. I personally don't know what a lot of people would do if they ended up in one of those parties. I mean in a totally adult consensual manner. I'm absolutely not talking about some Epstein type of horror situation. The movie questions, is it really worth it? Is it really worth throwing your relationship out of the window just for a night of fantasy? Or pushing it to the extreme, is it really worth attending one of these parties? It's all fun and games until you're caught in a situation with no escape. Once you're in those circles, there's no easy way out. Setting aside the story itself, the actual movie is visually beautiful. First of all, because it reminds me so much of tacky 90s Christmas when everything was vibrant and colourful, unlike now that we have beige and grey Christmas. Eyes Wide Shut is absolutely drenched in colour, even though most of it takes place at night. And it makes me sad when I compare it to modern movies, where nighttime scenes are often just dark grey mush where you can barely see anything. And I also love how it captures the beauty of New York in the winter without excluding its dirtier side. I lived in New Jersey for a while and I visited New York many times, and I always love seeing that look recreated on film. Casting wise, I think the fact that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were married at the time adds an extra layer to all of this. Kubrick actually wanted a married actor couple, and in hindsight, the fact that they were even close to divorce makes it all even more realistic. And then there's the film in itself. Basically, all of Kubrick's films are considered masterpieces, and I rewatched this film, keeping my eye out to spot if I could see some scenes that felt weak or awkward or badly edited, and honestly I didn't. But this is a guy who would make Tom Cruise walk through a door 95 times, and that's not an exaggeration, that's an actual fact from the film. So there was a wide range to get one good shot. And the cast of Kubrick's films constantly talk about how exhausted his perfectionism was, and because he was so obsessed with controlling every tiny detail, when he died and minor final adjustments still had to be made, people wondered whether the movie could ever truly be exactly as he intended, especially because apparently he kept on tweaking and re-editing his films, sometimes even after the first early screenings. But honestly, even if some tiny adjustments were missing, I think what we got is still overwhelmingly the masterpiece Kubrick envisioned. I would now love to hear what you think of Eyes Wide Shut. Do you think it's the masterpiece? Do you think it was lengthy and overrated? Let me know everything with a comment down below. If you haven't seen this film, do you think it's something that interests you? Again, I would love to know. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.